Catherine, it's one of our sons. I suspect Achenar. But I shouldn't leap to conclusions. I'll find him and Cirrus as well.
Let's tell me. Bring me a red page. Don't touch the red pages. No page. A page finishes my brother's book. Chills me to even think what would happen if you were to release him.
Not be persuaded by his evil lies. Do not release him. He killed my father. He will kill you.
Myst. One of the most iconic video games, not just in the point-and-click adventure game genre, but perhaps one of the most iconic video games of all time, being one of the best-selling PC games of all time. Perhaps it can be said that it's a testament to the intricacy of the setting of the world, with its many puzzles stumping fans for years, such as me. Or perhaps the number of sales are because of the amount of times the game has been ported and remade. I'm not kidding, the game has been released on the PC, Mac, PlayStation, 3DO, Atari, CDI, Amiga, the PSP, Nintendo DS, Nintendo 3DS, iOS, Android, Nintendo Switch, the Xbox One, the Xbox Series X. Whew. And not only has the game been ported so many times, it's seen multiple remasters, with Myst Masterpiece being released in 2000 and Real Myst Interactive 3D being released later in the same year, and a subsequent Real Myst update being released known as Real Myst Masterpiece Edition in 2014. Now originally when I started this video, my understanding was that Real Myst Masterpiece Edition was the latest version of the game to play, and I chose that as the version I would use to record the game, only for Cyan, the developers, to turn around and be all, you know what we haven't remade in a while? Myst. And released a subsequent version of the game at the end of 2020, designed for modern consoles and the addition of VR, known simply as Myst. Or as I will hereby refer to it, That's So Not Riven. Myst begins with the player character, anonymous as always, stumbling across a book in a weird chasm, which happens to be a book about the island of Myst, before sucking them in and taking them straight there. Upon this island, the player finds no signs of life, aside from a note left by a mysterious Atris, who asks his wife to find his message by entering the amount of marker switches on the island, which is a pretty shitty case of password protection. Most people would simply type the anniversary of their marriage or something interesting, but instead smooth-brained Atris over here decided on something that any random stranger could easily stumble across, which we proceed to do anyway. #hacker. The mysterious Atris mentions that his books have been destroyed by one of his children, and he's hidden the appropriate books on the island, with the library tower being key to locating each of them. Each of these books being entry points to wondrous lands created by Atris. You may remember that episode of Fairly Odd Parents where Timmy goes into books. It's kinda like that. Don't question it. Inside the library are two books, one red and the other blue, with similar colour pages being located next to them. Upon placing the respective page to the correct book, the player meets Atris's children, who are trapped within the book and beg the player for help by locating the respective book's pages, with Cirrus being trapped in the red book and Achenar being kept in the blue book. The main goal of the game is to locate all the pages for one particular book, which are hidden across the different ages of the game, accessible only by locating the respective linking book to each age. In all versions of Myst, there are 4 other main ages that the player can access and explore, which are the Channel Woods Age, the Stone Ship Age, the Selenic Age, and finally, the Mechanical Age. In order to locate linking books for these ages, the player needs to solve a puzzle which primarily features the Tower and Library of Myst. Inside the library is a map that the player can interact with to rotate the tower to focus on a main point of interest on Myst Island, and ride the elevator up to the tower to learn key information to access the hidden linking book through constellations, puzzles, and appealing to Poseidon himself to help raise ships and whatnot. Each age features its own puzzles, many of which being considerably hard, but also fair, and in order to leave the age and return back to Myst, the player will need to solve multiple puzzles in order to locate the exit in the form of a Myst linking book. Without this linking book, the player is trapped in the respective age. Now, at no point during the journey are the player's lives endangered by enemies, pitfalls, or dead ends, and they can proceed through these worlds at their own leisure. Across each of these ages are the pages that Cyrus and Akinar both seek, and as the player collects more of them, they learn more about the brother and that they've been imprisoned, begging the player to help free them. Each brother argues for their innocence, while also pointing the finger at their sibling, blaming them, meaning that the player needs to choose who to side with. Essentially, we're dealing with a blue pill, red pill scenario here. In order to really get the full picture, the player will likely want to gather as many of these pages as necessary for both sides. Although, realistically speaking, the player only needs to gather all of one set of the pages, either the blue or the red ones. These pages are located somewhere within each of these ages, although in all versions of Myst prior to the 2020 remake, the game annoyingly makes it so you have to grab one page at a time, meaning that if you want to grab both pages to properly gauge who to trust, you'll need to return back into that age and complete it again. And sometimes this sucks hard. For example, one age has a pretty lengthy puzzle, and even if you solved it the first time, if you want to gather the second page you didn't gather, you'll need to repeat it all again. Fortunately, Cyan realised how bullshit this was in the 2020 remaster of the game, and instead removed the singular item restrictions, allowing the player to gather as many pages as they like during a single trip. One of the things I find unsettling in point-and-click adventure games are the eerie quietness that fills locations, and Myst is one of the biggest offenders for this. Throughout the game and ages, there only exists Atreus and his 2 sons as interactable characters. All of the ages outside this trio are devoid of any life, and that's explained in the story, with it stated that many of the civilizations of these ages were exterminated by one of the brothers, and remnants of the devious personality of Atreus' sons also appear, such as in one of the Mechanical Age's hidden rooms where there exists a torture chamber. After gathering all the respective pages across all the ages, the player can return to the brothers. Both will be happy to see this, and regardless of which side is chosen, both will let the player know there is a respective page hidden behind the library's fireplace, with the required pattern being found in a burned book. Once inputted, the player finds both a blue and a red page waiting for them, as well as a green book, which both brothers explicitly tell the player not to touch. As it turns out, providing the final page to either brother turns out to be the wrong answer, leaving the player instead trapped in their prison instead, and revealing that both brothers are in fact evil, ending the game. Instead, the player is expected to open the green book they were explicitly told to avoid, because I ain't got time for these rules, bitch. The book turns out to be a linking book to an age known as Dunny, where they finally meet with Atreus, who reveals how Cyrus and Akinar became greedy and sought the riches of the red and blue books, which Atreus had refused, as he'd actually designed them to be traps for any thief stupid enough to appear on Myst Island. And as a result, the 2 brothers conspired, removing a page from the Dunny Myst linking book and luring their father there by trapping their mother in an age known as Riven. Without the page in the linking book, Atreus becomes trapped in Dunny, allowing the brothers to accomplish their goal of gaining access to the red and blue books, resulting in the books trapping the brothers in their own prisons. And then, along comes the protagonist. Atreus instead requests that the player not free those two, but instead come to Dunny with the missing white page to help them return back to Myst. Of course, the player doesn't have to, and if they enter the Dunny linking book without the page, the player receives yet another bad ending, where Atreus calls him an idiot and explains that they are both trapped there forever. Somehow the player shows such keen intellect and perception to manage to traverse several different ages, and yet somehow is stupid enough to enter the book and forget the way out. Whoops. The white page is hidden away on Myst Island, with the hints of how to find it scattered across the other ages. It turns out that the white page is hidden in a vault inside of a marker switch, and to open it, the player needs to turn on all of the markers of Myst Island, and then turn off the marker switch at the docks in order to open the vault. Or, if you're like me, and played on the randomised aspect for the 2020 version, the solution is the same, but in a different location, which for me was the conservatory. With the white page located, the player can safely enter Dunny and hand the page to Atreus, who briefly returns back to Myst to have a few words with his kids. Across most of the versions of Myst, this is the ending of the game, with Atreus commending the player and asking if they'll stick around to help him with another situation, leading into the sequel of Myst, Riven, which again still exists, Cyan. Please. However, in real Myst, there exists a hidden age for the player to access, hidden through reading through new journals left in the Myst library and tinkering with codes found. With this, the player gains access to the Rime Age, a snowy tundra for them to explore, although not necessarily impacting the game, although providing some additional puzzles and scenes to explore. Myst is certainly one of the more charming and wondrous games I've had the pleasure of exploring through. Several times, in fact. When first playing it, I found that the puzzles were a bit too overwhelming for my dumb, puny adolescent mind. And I won't lie, there were times where I did have to consult with a guide. In fact, real Myst came with a built-in hint system. But when I revisited the game a few months later on the randomised mode, I began to understand the logic more, and with hindsight, I came to realise that the game was not nearly as unfair in logic as I had originally believed it to be. However, I do need to let Cyan know, as much as I love it every time they remake Myst, they really should consider at least remaking Riven once or something. Want to make sure you don't miss out on the next Noir Reservoir video when it's released? Then make sure you don't forget to subscribe to Noir Reservoir and click that little bell down there to be kept up to date on all future Noir Reservoir videos. Likes and comments are always appreciated, and why not consider checking out my Twitter for all the dank memes? I'm sure you won't regret it. Probably. So until next time, my friends, I'll catch you later.